You have to really like be serious and learn the fundamentals and understand what it is that you are doing, because the camera is an incredibly powerful tool. It's not something I feel like, if you're gonna do it as a career, it's not something that you should take lightly. You need to really understand whatever it is, whatever industry that you decide to go in, you need to understand all aspects of it. So just obsess over that understanding and exploration.
You are now listening to The Gradient Radio, an open space to converse about creativity with creatives. And I am your host, Antonio Knoxx. And today we have a special guest. Today, our guest is a multidisciplinary creative with a focus on photography and cinematography. Today, our guest is Joshua Maclin.
Ooh, that intro is insane, bro.
Thank you, bro. It took a minute.
The pressure is on.
How are you, G?
I'm doing well, man.
That's
I'm
good.
glad to be here, excited. I woke up early this morning, like 6 a.m., just ready to go.
Getting some coffee, I see.
Yeah.
You're a coffee lover, right?
Nah, I can't drink coffee anymore because I'm old. So now I'm off the tea.
Oh, you on tea now?
Yeah.
Dad, you used to be a man of caramel lattes, right?
Yeah. Caramel and then the mochas. Caramel cold, mochas hot. Yeah.
So, for people who may not know who Joshua Maclin is, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, I am a photographer and DP based out of Richmond, Virginia. Been doing this since 2012.
Yeah.
Wow. Almost 10 years. Yeah. 10
It
years.
is 10 years.
Yeah. Full time since 2015. And I haven't stopped ever since. Specialize in fashion photography, portraiture. On the cinema side, I do everything from the fashion films to short narrative films, all the way through commercial work, the whole deal. So
Yeah.
that's my life.
What made you start? What was the catalyst to get you started in this direction?
So I got into photography. Well, first I got into videography first. I wanted to be a filmmaker. Initially, it was just for fun. I just wanted to film with my friends, film myself playing drums, that kind of deal. And then I think I got my first gig in college when I was at Richard Bland. A friend of mine wanted to hire me to do some fashion videos for her. So I guess that's probably how I started getting into fashion, now that I think about it. I didn't really think about it until this moment. But yeah, she hired me to do like a fashion film for her YouTube channel, kind of like a lookbook type of deal. And from there, I kind of just really gravitated towards whatever was bringing me the income. So it was very income driven, my career. And I think it's still to this day, it has a lot of those parallels. So right now I'm doing primarily like video stuff because that's just the way the industry is. Yeah. But back then, no one really cared about video too much. She was like one of my only video clients. And from there, I guess people just decided to hire me to take photos because I had a camera that could do it. Back then I wasn't that good, but yeah, I think that's what kind of really got me into it, was just getting out there, somebody recognizing the talent in me, and then just me trying to see what I could do with it, where I could take it.
Yeah, I didn't know you actually started with video. I thought you started with photography. Because when we met, you were doing photography at that time.
Yeah. And
I didn't know, like, beforehand you were doing video.
Yeah. I got that T3i, but before that, we had these Sony Handycams through the Music Biz Club. We had this like grant with Adobe through 4-H, this youth organization I'm a part of, and we had like a task. In order to fulfill the grant, we had to create like a series of videos. So that was kind of like my intro into like seriously creating a video. We had 2 of those Sony Handycams, so I got to experiment with like 2 camera setups and different things like that. But and in fact, I think I might have filmed that fashion short on the Sony Handycam. I don't even know if I had the T3i then. But yeah, so I just wanted to go full force with the video creation, with filmmaking, and yeah, I just went with the flow, essentially.
That's the best way to go about it. So one of your first tools, you mentioned that was one of your first cameras was the T3i.
Mm-hmm.
And
first camera. Yeah.
Your first camera. Tell me about that exploration process of having that T3i.
Wow. I remember that vividly, honestly. It was like such a new space coming from playing drums, and that's all I knew was music, to now having this camera in my hand, which before it was just dabbling in like cell phone, whatever that was, cell phone photography at the time. To get the T3i and to experience like really first generation photographer in my family, no real guidance or anything on that, and very little information on YouTube. So it was a foreign land. I think there was Flern and Fro Knows Photos. Mm-hmm. Those were like the top YouTube photography people at the time. So Fro Knows Photos got me into shooting raw and learning the manual settings on the camera. And then Flern was like all about the retouching and editing in Photoshop and that kind of deal. But when I first got the camera, I didn't have any of that. I had the camera and I had whatever free photo editing application came on the like 2009 MacBook at the time. So, and I had that MacBook for a long time. Definitely, it was like 2009 model.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very, very interesting, and I'm a technical person, so I think that's kind of what drove me to really master the camera and figure out how to control it manually. Mm-hmm. I didn't spend very much time at all shooting in auto. I kind of just went right into understanding how to like get the most out of the camera. And then I got the 50 millimeter lens. So that's when I fell in love with like the blurred background, the bokeh, the bokeh. And that was interesting as well, because I think up until that point, a lot of the storytelling that I was doing was more centered around, I guess, the composition and the location and the scenery and everything like that, because I couldn't blur out the background. So it wasn't ever a time where I was like, oh, we'll just put it at 1.8 and I'll shoot this portrait here and it's still gonna look fire.
Yeah, facts.
So I don't know if that was a good thing during that time, to be honest.
Yeah.
Now thinking back. In fact, I don't even recommend people pick up the 50 millimeter as their first lens.
Really?
No, not at all. I recommend zoom lenses.
Okay.
Because it's so versatile, and you can now, not necessarily the kit zoom lens, but if that's what you start out with, I mean, obviously, you can make it do what it do with that lens too, but zoom lenses for versatility for sure. I went through the whole gamut of all of that. After I got used to the 50 millimeter, then I got gear acquisition syndrome, because I'm making money now with photography, or so I thought I was making money. I was making enough to buy more gear. Yeah. Pretty much all the money was going back into that, but yeah, I think that camera just opened up my mind to what was possible.
Yeah.
And then the hacker in me ended up putting that oh goodness, what's the name of that software? I don't know if you remember that, where you could put it on your camera and it would open up.
Yeah.
It would open up like it's like almost like jailbreaking the camera.
For sure, yeah, I remember. Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, it just kind of like opened. I don't remember the name, but I remember like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It gave you more features.
Right. Yeah.
Just like possibilities to be able to do something with your camera.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had did that whole 9, and that just I think not having a lot of money at the time really allowed me to maximize what I had and figure it out, so that when the time came for me to pick up some new gear, I had a greater appreciation for that new equipment, and I already knew kind of like how to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just made things easier.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it did. Back in my photography days, that's when we kind of met, when I was doing Daniel's shoot, his engagement shoot. And I remember us conversing, and then we kind of like geeked about like Visco. That was a game changer. That was the game changer.
Yeah, when I met you and you showed me that, I was like, bet. Faded everything.
Yep.
Grain on everything.
I mean, because that was like the hipster look at the time. Like because at the time we didn't realize that we can do that in Photoshop.
Right.
But like it was so much more accessible and easier to do it on Visco that it was kind of like
Yeah.
a game changer for everyone.
That was before the Wi-Fi transfer on the app. You actually had to get the card.
Yeah.
That orange.
Yep, the orange joint. Yeah.
I don't even remember.
I used it once and I lost it. I was mad.
What was it? I don't even remember,
I don't remember
what that
the
was
name,
called.
but I know exactly what you're talking about.
But yeah, you plug that in. Then now you have Wi-Fi. You
Yep.
connect to that card, and you can transfer the
over.
images
Yep.
and edit right in Visco.
Yep.
And that was like, that changed everything. Because then now like I'm getting into, I guess, the more technical space of editing, understanding colors, and how to, basically adjust the image in a way that I was envisioning in my mind without limitation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah, you're definitely taking me down a journey of like things I forgot about, jailbreaking the camera, the memory card with the Wi-Fi on.
Yeah.
That was a different time.
It was.
Technology has really advanced within like these last couple of years.
Absolutely. And I think the technology industry is a great thing. Some people have like mixed reviews because they're making photography so easy, but like I don't think it should be the technology should not be a barrier to like an artist creating.
Yeah.
So I love what's happening with cameras right now. In fact, I own a mirrorless camera now, and it's a lot like shooting with a phone.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it just opens up so much more possibility. Like you can create amazing looking content now and not have to have a ton of money to do it.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
I would honestly, like when we first started, I never thought you would get a mirrorless camera because you were so Canon, and at the time Canon wasn't doing mirrorless cameras. It was on like only Sony's or like the Lumix of the worlds.
Right.
And Sony and Canon wasn't like into that space. So just to see like the evolution of like not only the technology but like the type of equipment that you use in particular, from that time that we met with Daniel, it seemed like from my perspective, it seemed like you said you were taking pictures, you were doing all of this, but it seemed like your technical skills, but also like what you were creating just kind of like skyrocketed like over the course of like months. It seemed like, could you kind of like dive into that process of like how you became so good? You did a little bit with saying like you were like a technical person, and with the cameras that you were using, you were always using it in manual mode. So I guess in many ways you were what's the word I want to say? You just knew what you knew. You were getting better by just like doing different things. Could you speak about that process?
Right. I think what the basis of it is the mentality of like, I guess it's something inside of me that hates not being able to understand or not being able to do something.
Yeah. And
that idea of like, it's nothing that I can't do or can't figure out. Like I have to be able to figure it out. Mm-hmm. I think that was the driving force probably behind my obsession with all of those things, to where I was able to take the foundation of what I was learning off YouTube, what you showed me with Visco, and just being around folks, seeing the process. I guess it was beneficial at the start that I was able to reach out and touch different folks to get that inspiration and a sense of tangibility to what I was doing. And once I was able to touch it, that's when I knew in my mind for sure that I like had to go crazy with it.
Yeah.
So I think from that point on, it was study, practice. I remember times where, like before this, and to create like a parallel or comparison, before this, it was drums. People never saw me without my practice pad and my sticks. So I'm constantly like trying to get better. This is like during like marching band days and stuff like that. So I'm practicing rudiments, all of the different things, reading music, all that kind of stuff, constantly. And I think I took that same practice and took it to my, camera work, photography, videography, whatever. And I constantly had the camera in my hand. I'm at VCU. I'm walking around, shooting in manual, trying to dabble in different areas of photography, doing street stuff, portraiture with my friends, and I think it was the idea of just like never stopping that creation, that kind of just helped me to, I guess, what it seemed like I just excel, but I really just am just putting in constant hours.
Yeah.
I guess at a more consistent rate than I guess what a normal sane person would do.
For sure. You had a passion for it.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I think, I noticed the change in your work because at one point, once you found out about Visco, you were obviously like using Visco, but I think there was a shift when you started to use Lightroom, right? And when you started to focus more on like high fashion and the portraits that you said that you were taking at VCU. I think the first one that I saw that was like mind blowing, like was like the Cure Please joint.
Oh, that was a game changer.
That was like a game changer there because it was like it was completely night and day from like what you were taking before to like what you took at that point. Could you speak to that?
Yeah. So there's a lot of I guess emphasis I place on that photo because it was like a pivot point in my career. Like just as you said, not just visually but just mentally. That photo went crazy. And at that time Kiara was popular, but it wasn't to the point of like where she is now at almost 1 million followers.
For sure.
And that kind of deal. So for that photo to go like that during that time when I guess like this Tumblr was big.
Yeah, it was on Tumblr, right?
Yeah, it went big on Tumblr, and then from there it kind of just went out into the stratosphere, people painting it, writing poems about it. Daniel, that we were just talking about, Daniel Robertson, he has some paintings in his house, I think still right now, that some random person did of that image.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a mixed medium type of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, just seeing all of the outpour of support and just like you said, people just so in love with those images just made me realize like, yo, I really have an opportunity to make a difference with the work that I'm doing. And I think that was probably the first time in my life where I felt like I was really doing something worthwhile, like something like purpose built, like something that I can really say, oh yeah, this is me.
Yeah.
And that felt really good because before that is, it's just exploration. It's just trying to figure it out, dabbling here, dabbling there.
Yeah.
I've been a musician my whole life, but never in my life had I felt like how that entire experience made me feel. And I'm not going to lie, that was like fuel. It was a very addicting feeling. And I think now it was, let me chase after the next thing. How do we top that?
Yeah.
And that journey just continued.
Yeah.
Fashion photography, the same thing. That was more like artistic portraiture, but it allowed me to get noticed and have like a proof of concept to show to different folks. And it just so happened that we had a nice fashion scene, within the area, and people really doing it. At that time, Ink Magazine was really doing it on VCU campus, and the people that were there were very serious. Like most of them working in that arena now, and just like the technical piece of it, just getting into trying to create those Vogue-esque looking images just drove the art and exploration of light and shaping light and all of those things like through the roof, honestly.
Yeah, because I remember that you guys shot that picture of her in her dorm room, right?
Absolutely. Yep, my cousin Sky was with me. We didn't think anything of it. We thought it was just gonna be, a nice Tumblr shoot, very Tumblr-esque. A friend of mine, Alex, who was the first model who ever gave me a shot, I was cold emailing tons of people, and she was the first one that actually let me photograph her seriously, and she had some input on the creative behind that as well. Skylar was there. We were in her dorm and just moved all the furniture out the way. I had like shoe mount flashes then. I was shooting with just like the little flashes that go on top of the camera.
Yeah.
and some umbrellas. I want to say like some shoot through umbrellas. And that's all we had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't really tell. Once you told me you shot that in the dorm, I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That showed me you could, if you have an idea and you don't limit yourself, you can honestly like shoot anywhere.
Absolutely.
That's what that showed me. Because I thought I needed like the greatest of the greatest equipment to be able to do what like the higher people were doing in the world, like the fashion world, so just like photography in general.
Right.
But like I think that showed me was like, man, like if you can do this in a dorm, you can anywhere basically.
Absolutely. I think that's incredibly important for people to understand that, like, the only difference between that gear and the gear that I use now is it just makes things easier. It saves time, that's it. But I mean, how would you even know that if you didn't
Exactly.
if you didn't have to go without? And that at that time, man, it wasn't any middle ground like equipment. It was the stuff I had, or you spending thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Now we have a lot in between, thanks to advances in technology and stuff like that. But just to your point, you can really do it with whatever you got, as long as you had a vision.
Yeah. So at that point, did you switch to the 60? Were you at the 60 at that point, or when was the point that you switched to 60?
I didn't get the 6D until I think it was a little bit after I was about to graduate. Well, right before I was about to graduate.
Okay, so at that point you were still doing a T3I.
Yeah, I ran my business with the T3I for a couple years, actually. Yeah. Yeah, like 2014, I was still shooting T3I, I want to say. And then I remember I got the 6D not too long before I went out to LA for the first time to work out there. Yeah, I remember getting that 6D. Wow.
Yeah.
I think, did I buy that used?
Yeah, it was a used one, yeah.
Yeah. I have this. I think this is the first camera I bought new. No, the EOS R I bought new too. But yeah, I'll always buy used gear. I still do if I can.
Yeah, save you a lot more money.
Heck yeah.
And it still works.
Yep.
Yeah. So you bought the 60, and I could tell that there was like an emphasis on fashion, high fashion shoots. And earlier you spoke about shaping lights. It's different to shoot outside when you have like natural lighting, but like when you shoot inside, you need different types of lights, reflectors, and stuff like that. It's a much different process. And I know like it probably wasn't easy at first. Could you speak to the journey of you shooting inside with like lights in studio? Yeah.
So to your point earlier, it really started with like whatever I had. I was using like utility shop lights in my room, and actually did the reverse. I focused in on studio lighting before I even paid attention to what I was doing in natural light. Like that wasn't my focus at all. So I kind of did it backwards. So I was primarily focused on doing that, and just learning how to get the most pleasing light with the harsh lights that I had. And then that translated into what I do today, essentially, with just pretty much taking the light sources that I have and trying to find the lighting that's most pleasing to the subject, and just to get back on it, because I know I'm like all over the question. But I think the process for me has always been to start off with one light, and I still do this even if I have like a more complex lighting setup that I'm going to build out. I always start with my main light first and understanding like what that's doing to the subject. And for me, I've gotten to the point now where I can just know where I want to place the lights and how it's going to look, what power they need to be at, what f-stop I need to be at, without even having to really build in the light as much. But to start off, one singular light and mastering what that does, moving it around the subject, understanding like exactly what that light is doing. I think it's incredibly important to have a subject or someone that you can work with on a consistent basis, just so you can kind of, one, they understand that like you're learning this stuff, they have the patience, that kind of deal, and then two, It's just like chemistry with anything else. If you keep switching out your band members, you'll never really mesh. The same thing, I think, when you're learning this stuff, to have a consistent group of people or a consistent model or whatever the case may be that you work with on a regular, it's really beneficial to be able to hone in on whatever skill, especially when it comes to lighting, because the face is not going to change. The lighting going to be the only thing that changes.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of exploration for me. That's what it was. Just like trying new things, being a visual person. I'm grabbing, at that time, magazines, different things, grabbing pages out of those, referencing them, trying to replicate the light. That's all I'm doing is replication. I see some inspiration on a Zara ad in the mall, and I'm looking at that, and I'm like, okay, bet I'm about to go back, and I'm going to try to recreate that exact thing. So, like, I never was a person where it was like, it has to be completely original.
Yeah.
You know, it was more so of like, let me figure out how to master this, and then it becomes a part of me, and then obviously I'm unique. So the work is going to be uniquely mine. You know, maybe not that shoot, but like some more shoots down the line.
For sure.
So that's kind of like the process of just obsessing over an artistic style of whoever it is that I'm looking at the time, and then trying to go and then recreate that look and feel.
Yeah.
And it just comes out feeling like me, regardless.
Yeah. So I can imagine at that time too, as you were basically honing your craft, you were also getting clients too, from different types of clients. And you know, you spoke earlier about you were getting clients, but you weren't charging the way you were potentially charging now, or getting to what you charge now. What's the journey of figuring out your worth in that process of like understanding the business side, but also knowing that you're really good at what you're doing. You're really good at what you're doing.
Yeah, I would say in general it never stops, because as you elevate, you it's just new territory.
For sure.
To where like I feel like I'm in that same thing again right now, because I'm just getting into commercial work and understanding like the different various things with that usage. I didn't even realize that you could charge more if weekend work was required. Different things like that you have to keep in mind, and how those negotiations work. It's a whole different world, you know. It's the game of like, what's your budget? What do you charge? What's your budget? You know, that back and forth, and they never they never want to say it. And I started out charging, I think, like $25 an hour or something like that for photography. And looking back at my work, it was probably worth $25 an hour. No, but I'm just kidding. It was probably worth more than that. But at the time, I felt like that's what was, you know, that was a good rate, because I was making, from the music world, I was making like $100 a show, you know, playing drums.
You was comparing it to.
You're right.
Yeah.
When in reality, there's absolutely no comparison.
There's no comparison. You know, one of the earliest things too, like when it came to that, it's like when I would charge something, people will always try to compare it to like a regular job. So like if I was charging like $100 an hour, people would be like, well, for a regular job, people only charge this. It's like you said, like it's not the same. You can't really compare the two.
You cannot.
Excuse me. You can't really compare the two. It's vastly different.
Yeah, absolutely. And now what I'm realizing is, well, it's not just now, but the theme of my life has been like no hourly. Like,
no, I don't do hourly. I stopped that, bro.
Like, you can't really break it down in that way. Like, there's certain packages that I still offer, but it's starting to get less and less. Like, I went from having like tiers of packaging for my photography work and video work, and to now it's just like one base with add-ons.
Yeah.
Which only goes out to like your everyday type of thing. Yeah. When you get into the commercial world, they're not seeing none of that.
Nah.
We're going negotiation first.
For sure.
Because at the end of the day, every budget is different, every ask is different, and this stuff might see 4 million people. You know. Yeah. So you know, the scale is just all over the place. It's not a package kind of environment.
Yeah.
And I'm learning that
it's based on the project.
Yeah, it's project based, absolutely. And I'm learning that even in for small business, it can be relatively the same way too. So, yeah, it's been a journey, and I think it's going to continue to be that way always as I elevate. Hopefully, thank you, God.
For sure. Speak that.
Continue to elevate. It's just always understanding. I think it's important for us as the creative community to not be gatekeepers of information. Now, do I think you should just broadcast your race out on your website? Absolutely not. But like when you have a young, filmmaker or whatever come up to you and they're talking numbers, I don't think we should ever shy away from being transparent.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, a lot of us are first generation, so we don't have anybody else to ask. We don't have anybody to have our backs with this thing. So the more information we share, the better off we'll be as a community. And really, realistically, that helps me because if so-and-so is out here blazing but charging 50 to 75% less of what I'm charging, that's going to bring the market value down.
It's going to bring you up.
So in the spirit of transparency, it helps everybody. It helps them and it helps you.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear like with some jobs, they have a policy in which you shouldn't speak about, what you make. But what people have come to realize, if you ask a person like what they're making and they tell you, then you can kind of like gauge the market. So like if one person is making like $50,000 and another person is making like $85,000, you see what that person is making and you could be like, well, we're doing the same job, so I should be making the same thing. And so you can go to like your person or your boss or like super HR and be like, yo, like this person is making this, like I should be making the same thing. And so like what you said basically is like people should be able to speak about like what they're making, so it doesn't bring the market down. One person's not getting paid less than the next person, right. Especially if you're doing the same job, the same way, the same experience. And so like I think that's truly valuable to be able to speak about that process, that part of the process when it comes to money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think particularly in the Black community, we really don't talk about money
at all. Yeah.
Like not even within our families. For real. It's very like a very sensitive subject to talk about, which I mean rightfully so. Historically we've been struggling for a while,
Still, for sure.
and still are. And pretty much all of us can reach out and touch a family member that's,
Facts.
in poverty right now.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for us to do it within the community and within our families as well.
Yeah. Earlier you spoke about how you started with someone hired you to do like a video of like some fashion work. I really thought you started like fashion work just due to fashion video work due to like Instagram, right? But now seeing like it was kind of like a full circle moment that like you started with the fashion area with video, and then like once Instagram started to like implement different kinds of ways of like doing video, it seemed like you really attacked that, and how that was like I thought that was like also for me I also thought that was like another like momentum shift for you and like your career. But it seemed like it wasn't. It was something that you were always doing or intending to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a very multi-layered question right here because it's like yes and no. I think at the end of the day, I just love working with people, so that's kind of what drove me towards fashion, because it's very team-based and it's easy to get that scale of production even on a smaller level, because you have your makeup artist, stylist, hair, all of that kind of deal, several models. It's very community feeling. At the time, I think I fell into the right environment or the right group of people, because the entire fashion industry isn't so like loving and welcoming and uplifting at times. But I think to your point, and maybe not to your point, with the evolution of Instagram, because there was a time where that wasn't even the platform where I was posting my photos. Like I was posting them mostly on Facebook, and Tumblr and things like that. But with the evolution of Instagram and the various ways that we can share content, that has vastly transformed the way I shoot, the way we think about like concepts and content delivery, planning, length, content length has dramatically decreased.
Yeah.
Since we first started, I remember it was nothing for people to sit there and watch a 7-minute video back in the day. And now it's like you'd be lucky if you get them to watch 7 seconds. So that has dramatically changed the way we create as well. We're also filming in portrait orientation, like at a significantly increased rate.
Yeah.
Because of the Instagram Reels, TikTok, Instagram Stories.
Yeah, no one's turning their phones.
Yes, it has evolved, and for me personally, in my personal Instagram, with me trying to build my media company, now I'm in a space of where I am trying to do a shift of people, and I'm noticing like dips in my content in terms of interaction. So like, and I'm still working on this. Is like fresh. Nobody even knows that this is what I'm doing right now. So I'm throwing out little, Maclin Media here, Maclin Media here. My website is kind of like gearing a little bit more towards that now. Now I have, instead of just like an email, I have a contact sheet with the Maclin Media branding, and it has several questions on it. And I've switched over to a CRM, and I think with Instagram and social media in general, it has definitely greatly influenced, but it still is all completely driven on what my life is centered around, like in terms of what I like to create. So right now I'm doing a lot of fitness stuff. And it's been a shift in my Instagram, and the interactions have been kind of up and down with that kind of thing. So I've been trying to, give the people what they're used to seeing, but also I'm really interested in the fitness space right now. So I'm like experimenting with that. And I think, to your point, a lot of my stuff, and I think that's what keeps me going and feeling like, keeps the passion going. So I'm not just like chasing the dollar completely. It's always been about what I care about at the time. Yeah. That's why I never really fully, I don't know the right word, but like I never really fully identified with being a fashion photographer per se, because of that thing. It was just what I was loving at the time. Yeah. And it's nothing against what I was doing at the time. I don't want to like take away from it, because I was extremely passionate about it at the time, but my passions are very fluid. Like I kind of just keep going. I never get really fully, I guess, locked in, like this is all I'm gonna do or nothing.
For sure.
Kind of thing, which has been helpful in my business.
Yeah. I mean, it also gives you like other jobs, right? Like more things to do because you know more things.
Absolutely.
People ask me that all the time, like, because I've done like so many different things, and I believe like there's like a season for like every particular thing.
Right.
And right now I'm just kind of like focused on like this radio show and like the app and the platform. And people ask me because I released a movie like last year, and like people like, when are you going to do another movie? When are you going to do another movie? And I'm like, maybe if there's like another season for that, maybe I'll come back to that. Like I never want it to be like one singular thing. Like I never wanted to be like, a photographer, because people used to say that, like here's like Antonio Knoxx, he's a videographer. I never wanted to be like that, or he's a graphic designer. I never just wanted to be that like one fixed thing. And I like just like you, I love to create. I love to create whatever it is, like whatever I see, whatever I want to like try to like implement. I just like love to create, and I just like call myself a creator at the end of the day, because I focus on like so many different things. Yeah. And it's just like a season for that. Like, it's a season when you're just doing workout stuff. Like it was a season when you were doing fashion stuff. It was a season when you're just doing like different kinds of video stuff. So like I completely agree, and I'm on that same wave too. It's like, yo, like it's just a different season for something, but I'm not like this one thing.
Right.
I'm not just this one thing.
Yeah. What we are we are creators. And I think that is the umbrella that you can put us under.
Facts.
Because whether it's me with the camera, me with drums, me with building, different pieces of furniture or whatever.
Yeah, you're definitely a builder, bro.
like it's just creating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, that's
every aspect.
I believe that's what we're kind of like here for. I think we're here to serve, but also we're here to like create too, and to be able to have an idea and to see that to fruition. I'm sorry, to see that to fruition. It's like a great process.
Yeah,
it's a great process.
Something incredibly rewarding about creating something.
Yeah,
whatever that may be. Small or large. It's just something that is fulfilling about it. That I can't describe anything else that makes me feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know in the beginning that you needed people when it came to photography? Because I know, like for me, like when I was doing photography, it was just like only me, right? But you spoke about and kind of like the fashion world per se, or just like the type of photos you were taking, that you needed people to facilitate, or like you start to get people to help you in the process of like taking photos.
Yeah.
When was that? When did you realize? When did you come to that conclusion?
That I needed people,
or that it would be much more beneficial to have a team with you?
Yeah, after experiencing burnout, I've actually experienced it a couple times. One time I was when I was in school, then recently again, last year. I ended up not doing anything for like 6 months after that. And now coming into this year, I just realized like the busier I get, the more help I need. Also, aside from that point alone, the more eyes, the more creative eyes you have on a particular project, the better it's going to be. So now the theme of my life has been to outsource as much as I possibly can. Build out a team that can help me load in equipment, set up lights. Eventually, I hope that I'll have someone to be able to even talk to the clients and do that whole negotiation process back and forth, so that I can spend more time creating and less time on the admin. Because we were talking off of camera about how like that's been like taking up my life these past few months, pretty much since like the top of the year. It's just like admin, building out all of these different templates and all the negotiation processes and figuring out what to charge and getting a crew index of all these people that I can reach out to subcontract through my company. It's just been a lot of that, and that is very, very time consuming. So I think that was really the turning point, just after experiencing those burnouts. But to your point, I was the same way, one man band, and it was almost like a prideful type of thing, like, oh, he can do it all. He can shoot it. He can do the photos at the same time. He can edit all that stuff together. He's gonna set up the lights and do that. And after a while, you just get exhausted.
It's a lot, bro.
Honestly,
that's why I stopped.
Yeah.
It was just a lot.
It's a lot. Very, very. It's a reason why on these productions they have all of these people. They have someone to even just set up the camera for you.
Yeah.
Someone to change the lens for you. It's a reason why. And now that I'm scaling my business and getting clients that require a lot more of me mentally, it makes sense to have those different folks doing that stuff, for sure.
Yeah. So you also do weddings?
Yes, I still do.
Still do weddings?
Yes, I do. There's a lot I like about weddings. There's a lot I don't like about weddings, which I am outsourcing now. So I really enjoy getting to know people in general. in that interaction throughout the day, capturing, in a documentary style. And I don't necessarily enjoy the pose part of it, of like
having people pose
like stage type of shots. And I think here recently that my couples have been noticing that in my work, and I'm starting to get more people that understand that, and that's what they're looking for anyway.
for the poses.
For the opposite,
Okay.
of like more of a documentary style, more of an authenticity behind the work. And then for the stuff that I don't like culling through thousands of images and editing for hours and hours and hours, outsource. It's just one of those things I'm realizing, like, I can create the life I want and charge whatever I need to charge to offset, so that I still make the money that I need. Excuse me. So I still make the money that I need to make, and at the same time the client is happy, and I don't feel like, oh, I'm so exhausted from doing this, like I'm overshooting weddings, because I just outsource the parts that I don't like to do.
I'm kind of like iffy like when it comes to weddings, because being in a space for about like 8 to 10 hours, especially I do video. I've only did photography for, I mean, you probably do video too at weddings too, but I only did photography for like one wedding, and that was just like enough for me. Like I was there for like 12 hours, and I got paid pennies because I didn't understand at the time the value of shooting a wedding. But like even now, when people ask me to do weddings, I'm like, nah, I'm good. Because like you said, like, we have control of like the life that we want to live. And when I realized that, I stopped doing like logos for like $25. I stopped doing like websites for like dumb cheap. I honestly, like, my first logo that I did was like $10. And my mother told me, it was like, that was like just too cheap to do that. Like just too cheap.
You can't even buy a meal from Chick-fil-A for that, I don't think, nowadays. You can barely get it.
Not with this inflation. Not with this inflation.
You're not getting over 2 gallons of gas.
No. So, I just kind of like stepped away from that stuff, and I only showed the work that I wanted to do. So like, if I wanted to do video, that's the type of work I showed. And even then, like, I'm really trying to get away from video too, to be able to have the ability to work remotely. And in many ways, you can't do that with video unless you're like doing editing work.
Right.
But I want to do less work but make a lot more money, and I'm just really trying to figure out a way creatively to be able to do that. So I'm only showing things that I just want to like focus on, and to be able to obtain clients that way.
Yeah.
So how do clients find you? Is it word of mouth? Is it through like your website? Is it through like social media? How do you get your clients?
So the vast majority of my clients come through Instagram, almost like a direct funnel from Instagram. Very rarely through the website, and then I would say second to Instagram is word of mouth. Now, I'm working on in this next half of the year, shifting, well, not necessarily shifting from Instagram, but in addition to that, starting to develop organic leads, or just like, leads outside of Instagram, whether it be running ads for my media company, sending out cold emails, that kind of deal, to different, companies and things like that, letting them know what we can offer them, kind of deal. But right now, as the analytics show on my CRM, everything's coming through Instagram for the most part.
For people who may not know what a CRM is.
Customer relationship management is a tool specifically for that. I use HoneyBook. There's a bunch of stuff out there. HoneyBook is probably the most expensive of the tools that are available to like freelance companies, but it's very user friendly. I don't have to think about it. It has an app. That was very important for me to be able to, like, on my phone, contract, put a whole proposal together, an invoice, contract, the whole deal, brochures, automated emails, that kind of deal. And it just elevates the client experience. So they feel like, a little bit more secure when we're throwing out these larger numbers. It feels a lot better than just coming from a Gmail or whatever, when it feels a little bit more polished. And even though the numbers are there and the work is there and it's all the same, it's just a presentation, which just elevates perceived value. Yeah. I'm big into perceived value. I've made YouTube videos about it.
Perception is everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. That can separate, because you see it all the time. There's a lot of people out here creating trash work, but they got their stuff together, and the presentation is there. Yeah. They got everything looks grandiose. They got the team and that kind of deal, and they're winning these projects, because the people that are paying for these things are usually not artists. So they could care less, or they don't even know to care. They can only go off of what they perceive. Yeah. So it's so important to do that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, some people know, but I always tell people, like, whenever you leave the house, leave presentable, because, like, people have a perception of you.
Absolutely.
But also, like, when it comes to, like, your work too, and, like, that's why branding is so, like, pivotal, because people look at something within, like, 3 seconds, they already made their mind about, like, what this is, or, like, what this person can, like, deliver.
Who you are as a person.
Exactly.
Which is scary.
Exactly. Exactly. So, like, perception means a lot more than people might want to believe in. So, like, always look your best, always put your best work forward, and make sure, like, it looks good.
Right.
At the end of the day.
You only have one chance to make that first impression. And really, you only have one chance to mess it up. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you might be able to smooth things over, but they still have that idea in their minds about you. Yeah. So it's so important. I can't stress that enough. Like, it's helped me so much in my business, and just like adding little things, client comforts on set, and different things like that just help to elevate. Just having a team already makes you feel like it doesn't matter. They don't know the background of these people. They don't know if they are really versed in what they're doing or not. Now, naturally, I'm hiring people that are, because otherwise, what's the point? Yeah. If I have to show them how to do everything. But yeah, it all matters. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Do you believe in affirmations?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
It's especially, I don't even know if I believe in, like, outwardly expressing them to the world, but, like, definitely in my quiet time.
For sure. So if I ask you to affirm, some things for your future right now, would you not outwardly do it?
No.
So as far as, like, what you see for yourself in the future, like, what the type of things that you want to accomplish, the things that your intentions.
Yeah. So right now, the biggest ones for me have been creating the bandwidth. So I see myself with more bandwidth to do the things that I enjoy that don't necessarily involve work. And with that's going to be when my company is a well-oiled machine, where I can not necessarily have to be on set every time for things. And I see for myself, my business will be a umbrella of a myriad of things is what I'm envisioning and what I'm affirming for myself. And what that umbrella will allow me to do is just have a better quality of, well, I wouldn't say a better quality of life, but in my affirmations, I say a better quality of life. For sure. For my sake.
I mean, your life is not terrible now, but, like, I get what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying? No, I'm not, and that's the thing.
For
like,
sure,
that's 'cause my affirmations. That's why I kind of keep them inside, because it's like for me. Yeah. And what I want to see my life look like, and that's having free time, having that stability of whatever my vision of stability is, and an incredibly flexible schedule. So those are the things that I've been affirming for like the past year.
That's good. What would you say to a person who's just like starting from like where you started? What type of gem would you drop to them to continue to go forward? What would you say to inspire? What would you say to yourself, like when you first started? Like, what gem would you drop, or gems?
Yeah, myself then and myself now, first starting out, would be completely different because of the climate of everything.
For sure. Yeah, speak to that beginning person.
To that beginning person,
that starter person.
I would say I'll just speak to like relevancy now, because I think what I would say to myself back then would be a lot different. But I'll touch on that too.
Sure.
But for now, I would say to eliminate all fear, or just not even eliminate it, but just walk towards it. Walk through those doors. Ask those questions. Be in an uncomfortable space, and don't be afraid to hear no. Essentially, I think that was a big thing for me as when I was first starting out. Is just like the fear of rejection and the fear of like losing a client and that kind of deal. And I think that kept me. I had to start back a lot further in terms of like pricing. Like imagine just having to elevate your price from $25, versus starting out, even as just $500 or whatever the case may be. So just walk towards that fear. Don't be afraid to do things that scare you a little bit. I would also say to myself, collaboration should be at the forefront always. Reach out to the people that you look up to and assist them. Figure out whatever you can do to get on those sets, whatever you can do to reach out and touch the things that you are inspired by. We have access to so much now, like in terms of people at high levels, just off of Instagram, Twitter, that kind of deal. And these folks are reading their comments. And yes, you're gonna get a lot of no's, but at the end of the day, if you're still constantly, taking those steps towards progressing, and you're reaching out to people, eventually you're gonna get an Alex. You're gonna get somebody that's gonna say yes, and that they're gonna take you in. There's tons of information on YouTube as well. I'm a huge proponent of that. Study, obsess over your work, like endlessly. Even if you have to burn out, I think burnout is good because you grow at some point. You grow through it. But obviously avoid burnout if you can. But if that's what it takes, just work endlessly at perfecting your craft. I think with this microwave stuff that we have going on right now, there's a lot of kids that, all right, I watch 3 videos on TikTok, 3 videos on YouTube. I know how to do this, and that. I can move my camera around and get the TikTok viral movements, and now I'm a filmmaker. No. You have to really be serious and learn the fundamentals and understand what it is that you are doing, because the camera is an incredibly powerful tool. It's not something, I feel like, if you're going to do it as a career, it's not something that you should take lightly. Mm-hmm. You need to really understand whatever it is, whatever industry that you decide to go in, you need to understand all aspects of it. So just obsess over that understanding and exploration. And lastly, save yourself a lot of money. Do not go out here buying a lot of gear. I would strongly suggest that you get a nice versatile setup, a camera, and a zoom lens. And if you're doing video, you're gonna need some sort of audio equipment. Get whatever you need to get for that, and master it. Master that. Shoot with it until your work requires you to get something else, and then make the client pay for it. Yeah.
That's it right there.
That's it.
Hey man, I appreciate you coming out, taking some time. It was great to hear your journey, even though I saw parts of it, but to be able to see the very beginning, to see your growth over the years has been an incredible process. I'm a witness to the greatness that you constantly spill out to people, but also like the images that you share, the videos that you share. It's like you're dope, bro.
Thanks, bro.
You're dope, bro. My name is Antonio Knoxx. That's Joshua Maclin, and this was the Gradient Radio.